Welcome to TMZ Live. As Nick Reiner is still in jail awaiting trial for the murder of his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner, he has now made a very interesting legal move. He is trying to get money that his parents left for him in a trust fund. He wants that money because he says it's the only way that he can get the representation, the legal representation that he needs for this trial. And he says he wants to hire Alan Jackson, or we should say rehire Alan Jackson, who, as you know, was hired back in December, very shortly after the murders. And Alan Jackson was working on the case and then abruptly, it seemed, dropped out of the case. And as he walked out of court that day, he said, "There's a lot more I just can't talk about." But now I think we're getting some insight here in these documents that Nick Reiner has filed. He says that this trust fund was set up for him before his parents' death, and it was set up that he would get money when he turned 30, that it was a schedule that he would get a certain amount of money at each age. And at age 30, he was supposed to get money, which he says he never got. That's the money that he now wants. He's 32 years old, and he wants that money so that he can hire Alan Jackson. So joining us now to talk about this interesting move is Alan Jackson himself. Alan, welcome back to TMZ Live. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Charles. How are you?
All right. So, Alan, I think most people, when they saw this story, when we posted it last night, they thought, well, wait a second. Why is Nick Reiner going to get inheritance from his parents when he is accused of murdering them? It just didn't feel right, I think, to a lot of people who read that. Obviously, this is not inheritance based on, that he would get after their deaths. This was money that was already set up for him to get. What did you know about that trust fund when you dropped out of the case?
Well, our team knew that a trust existed. We did not know what the contours of the trusts were. There were multiple trusts, we believed, at the time. But as the lawsuit indicates that Anita Wu filed against the trustee, there were guarantees, promises. There were certain overtures made about our defense and funding our defense, funding Nick's defense on his behalf, which includes things like inherently important things, hiring experts, getting the entire defense sort of populated with the right folks, the right people. It's not just simply about legal fees. As a matter of fact, there's much, much more to it than that. We knew that there were trust funds that existed prior to Michelle and Rob's tragic passing. The issue that's now before the court in probate, and I'm not the probate lawyer, I didn't bring that lawsuit, another lawyer did, is what's the difference between an inheritance and a trust? And that's what I think your viewers and what you just seized upon, that's what they need to understand. An inheritance is subject to the Slayer rule, which means you can't benefit from conduct that is supposedly specifically attendant to you receiving money under that behind that conduct. That's not what the situation is here. Nick Reiner had a trust. He had a trust well before the passing of his parents. That trust is an irrevocable trust that is his money. It's in the name of a trustee. He is the beneficiary, and that trustee has a duty and an obligation to see to that trust in the best interests of his client, and that client is one person. That's Nick Reiner. That's what the money that the lawsuit indicates is being held back from Nick, and it's wildly unfair. No matter what you think about the case, no matter what people conceive or on board about the case, specifically, the justice system only works when it's just. And that is Nick's money. According to the lawsuit, that money belonged to him well in advance of the circumstances that brought him to court in this instance. If he's entitled to it, then he should get it and be able to do with it what he wants. And what he wants to do with it, according to him, is to hire the legal defense of his choice. That is a Sixth Amendment right that every single person, every citizen has under the Constitution. Nick Reiner is no exception. He's entitled to it. And that's what this lawsuit is attempting to secure for him, his rights.
So in the documents that were filed, Nick says that this money, that his siblings signed off on him using this money, that they were not going to stand in the way of him getting this money to use for his representation. Was that your understanding did you hear anything about his siblings' sign-off when you started working on this case?
Yeah, if you look at the declaration that we filed, that I filed in support of at the request of his probate lawyer, it lays a lot of that out. It does not do anything, and I'm not going to do anything to invade the attorney-client privilege in my conversations with Nick specifically. But yeah, our understanding was from the jump, from the time I was in New York and I got that call, that urgent emergency call, our understanding was that the family not only was not going to stand in the way, but was fully supportive of bringing us on board immediately so we could jump into action to start securing Nick's interests and his rights.
So in that declaration that you mentioned, Alan, you do mention that you would be willing to, and you're ready to rejoin this case to represent Nick if the finances of the trust fund, if this trust fund battle can be figured out and he can have access to that money, that you're willing to come back on to represent him?
Well, in your opening remarks, you refer back to the press conference that I gave outside the courthouse when I had to very troublingly step down. You could tell from then I was not happy about having to step away from this case. I think Nick Reiner, like anybody else, is entitled to a robust, a zealous defense, the best defense he can possibly get. I still believe that to this day. So you're damn right. If the circumstances, the logistics are such that we can come on board, if there are the resources there that are necessary to be able to build a robust, a full-throated defense, absolutely. Absolutely. Me and my entire team are ready, willing, and able to step right back in and start securing his defense.
And you had indicated while you were on the case that it seemed like your strategy was going to be to get him acquitted by not guilty, to find him not guilty by reason of insanity, that would be the verdict that you were going after. Would that still be your strategy?
A lot of people are guessing about that. I'm not going to discuss legal strategy here. I think it would be inopportune for me to do that. I am not his lawyer as it stands. His lawyer is a very capable set of folks over at the Public Defender's Office. So I don't want to stand in the way of that, and I'm not going to discuss specific strategies. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts about what could or should be trial strategies attendant to Nick's case, but we have our own. I can tell you, do we have a strategy? Absolutely. We've got a strategy, a very thorough one. We developed it within the first few weeks of representing Nick. And that strategy hasn't changed. But I'm not going to talk about what the contours of that strategy is. I think it'd just be inappropriate.
Okay. One last thing, Alan. Do you know why he did not get the money at age 30? As I mentioned, he's 32. And he's now fighting to get this money that was by the trust that he should have gotten when he was 30.
Yeah, Charles, it's a great question, and I think that's what the probate lawyer, I think that's what she's seeking, is some answers as to what happened with the trust, what happened with the trustee at the time. Trustee, I believe, has changed since this incident occurred. So I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. I don't have the answer to all those questions because the trustee has not necessarily been incredibly forthcoming to us. They weren't when we were still on the case. So that's what the lawsuit is seeking to do, is just give some real stark relief so we can see what is actually going on behind the scenes financially for Nick, what happened before this incident, what's going to happen afterward.
And I'm not saying that you are saying this, but I think some people assumed in reading this that you left the case because you didn't get paid at all. Just to be clear, I don't think that was the case, right? In reading the documents,
that is not the case.
You were compensated.
Absolutely,
right.
Yeah. That is that. Look, I had to bite my tongue because it wasn't in furtherance of litigation. So I wanted to show fealty and respect and dignity to the process of me withdrawing. So it wasn't appropriate for me to talk about it at the time, but I had to bite my tongue oftentimes with regard to folks jumping to conclusions about why we left. It's not simply, it's not that black and white. And the declaration that's now been filed reveals that pretty clearly.
All right, Alan, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see if you're back on this case. Very interesting twist here.
Sounds good.
All right.
Good to see you.
Thanks.